By way of introduction, I'm Rory Aiken. I work at KaiPod, and I help schools get started and thrive. So we're thrilled to have you here tonight as we get started in a session talking about transition from the classroom to launching your own microschool. We've got a great program today, and I first want to just start and welcome Brooke from Teacher Transition. We're so thrilled to be doing this tonight with Teacher Transition. I know many of you came from that community and are being introduced to KaiPod, which we'll introduce in a second. But to begin, Brooke, want to welcome you and say thank you, and maybe give a brief introduction to yourself.
Yeah, all right. Well, I'm Brooke, and I am one of the community managers over at Teacher Transition, and it's so exciting to see so many great faces here with us tonight as we partner with KaiPod. Our mission has always been about empowering teachers to really expand your impact beyond the classroom walls. And we do that because we know you bring such incredible skills, compassion, and creativity in everything you do. And those are exactly the qualities that make opportunities like microschools so powerful. So that's why we are so excited to have this partnership with KaiPod tonight for this learning clinic. So as you guys are here, I know you're going to learn so much from the wonderful folks at KaiPod, but I also, knowing what Allie would say right now, be also thinking in the back of your mind, what is the action you are going to take with the knowledge that you've learned tonight? And how are you going to keep yourself accountable to that? And if you want to tag us on LinkedIn as a form of accountability, we are here for it. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Rory so you guys can learn from them. But thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Brooke. And as a one former teacher to another, I'm so glad to have you here with this teacher community. All the voices tonight actually are former teachers who have made this transition, myself included. And as we introduce our agenda, I will give you a quick overview of KaiPod itself. So for those that came from perhaps Teacher Transition, not familiar with KaiPod, KaiPod is the fastest growing network of microschools in the country. We have a mission to help kids love the school that they're in. And we do that by starting and supporting schools that tailor education to each child's needs and provide new pathways for educators. And so we have support more than 50 schools in over 12 states all across the country. And what we're going to be doing today is introducing a bit about that journey, how those 50 educators have gone through the path from a classroom to creating their own microschool. It involves a quick learning clinic, which is really a conversation between one of our founders, Elisa Hernandez, and our founder, Amar Kumar. And then we're going to go through a bit of an overview of the Catalyst program. There'll be plenty of time at the end for questions, so please put them in the chat, and we will collect them and we'll work through Q&A as we're going through this. Before I introduce and before we go to the conversation, let me quickly introduce Elisa Hernandez, the founder of KaiPod Learning, which is based in Phoenix, Arizona. Elisa began her educational journey fresh from high school. She always wanted to be an educator, trying out various subjects before settling on secondary English. She got her teaching certification and degree in 2013 and has been excited to be an English high school teacher ever since. Last year, she made the switch to become a microschool founder, and KaiPod Learning was born. She's passionate about getting students the personalized education they need and hold students accountable while respecting their space and options, something we'll be talking about a little tonight. And Amar Kumar has spent over 15 years improving education worldwide, having served as a teacher and a school principal. He is a graduate of Harvard Business School, where then became chief product officer at Connections Academy, where he developed technology and a curriculum for over 400,000 students across the world. More recently, Amar became an educational entrepreneur, founding KaiPod, which offers individualized, flexible learning options for families seeking alternatives to traditional schools. His vision is to help every teacher start the school of their dreams and build a world where every child loves the school they're in, which is exactly what we're going to be talking about tonight. So with that, I'm going to turn off my slides, see everybody, and welcome more faces if you have your Zoom screen up and you can see do the gallery view and see everybody, and start our conversation with Elisa and Amar. Amar, let me begin with you. Many people were just becoming familiar with the term microschool. So why don't we start at the beginning? What exactly is a microschool? How do you define it? and why are they becoming so popular?
Thank you, Rory, and thank you everyone for being here tonight. This is so exciting to see so many faces. Some of you are familiar faces. I know we've met before. Welcome to this webinar. This is the place to be tonight if you're in education. Microschools are in my opinion, the absolute best thing happening in K through 12 education right now. They're incredibly diverse, small learning environments. They're as diverse as the founders who create them. They're as diverse as the students who study in them. They're as diverse as the families that choose them. And I say this because there's no one easy definition. I can't say this is exactly what a microschool looks and feels like. There's a lot of different models for different types of kids. But the things that are common are they're small, usually 10 students per educator, maybe 12 students per educator. So it allows really personalized learning for each child. Their learning and the curriculum is very individualized so that each child is met where they are, rather than traditional instruction in public or private schools where one teacher may be speaking to 20 to 30 kids. In microschools, each child can move at their own pace, which is a complete game changer when it comes to academic outcomes and overall engagement. They're very local, so they're built by people within the community rather than some national organization or school districts or states. They're built by teachers who are in the community, who really understand that community. And most of them are multi-age and hybrid. So there's tons of flexibility for families and for kids. And that's what really makes them powerful. And they're becoming incredibly popular. Parents want more choices. Teachers like you and educators like you want more career paths. And we're starting to see a lot of funding follow these types of models. So it's absolutely the best thing happening in education right now.
And with that, Elisa, I'd love to bring you in and have you tell us a little about your school. First, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story. Tell us about your school and in particular, how you started down this journey. So many people just begin to think about that.
Yeah, for sure. Hi, thank you again for being here. Everybody, I know if you're currently teaching, like doing anything on a weeknight is probably like a sacrifice. So I appreciate you being here. Yeah, I was a teacher for over 11 years. I was tired of it. I loved what I was doing, but I also hated how I was feeling. I didn't feel like I was doing the best that I could as a teacher. And so, yeah, I started Noema Learning this August. The journey was a whole thing before that, though. I started the 2023-2024 school year, so last school year. I was still working out my teaching contract as well as starting my micro school. So I was like laying the groundwork. I was starting tutoring. I was contacting, families. I was kind of doing both. I was teaching my contract and starting this micro school. It's been tough. It's been difficult, but it's been the most rewarding journey I've ever experienced. I currently have 14 students in my living room. Like I'm an in-home micro school. There are some micro schools, just like Amar was saying, that are, they're so diverse. Some are in churches, some are in office buildings, some are in, just rented out spaces. I decided to just start in my home. I have 14 students that come into my living room, 6th through 12th grade. And they come in ready to learn. I really just wanted a personalized experience for students. My my years of seeing high schoolers come into my classroom and just be kind of done with learning or done with having fun in learning was really defeating to me. I would see 11th graders who would come in and just like, all right, what can I do? What's the bare minimum I can do to just get through it? That's not learning, right? That's not education. And so I was really passionate about getting fun back into learning. And that's Noema Learning. That's our whole philosophy. Noema is a Greek word. In case you're like, is her name Noema? That's not my name. It's a Greek word meaning thought or perception. And so it's kind of the background of, or kind of the base of what we do. I want students to learn to kind of think for themselves as well. Because a lot of times they come to you, I don't know if anybody's a high school teacher in here, but once you get to that high school level, they're kind of just like, tell me what I need to do, teacher. And so I wanted to get them out of that habit of doing that. Sorry, I'm rambling. But that is definitely the base of what I do. Thoughts, learning, fun, like those are it. I just really wanted a fun time, and we play games. A lot of times we gamify their learning. We projects that they're interested in, that whatever they're interested in, I figure out a way to get them to learn it. So it's been an experience.
You've already spoken to one of the great benefits of the creating your own school, freedom. Students.
Uh-oh.
Hey,
I'm gonna
Rory,
just
your
say,
audio's getting choppy. Try again.
oh, I'm sorry.
You're back. You're back.
I apologize. The freedom to choose a name and design the program accordingly. I'm gonna just a guidepost where we're headed. We're gonna talk about a couple different aspects of what it means to create a microschool, academics, some of the legal compliance questions we get a lot about in marketing enrollment. So Amar, maybe we'll go toward academics and curriculum first. What are some of the advantages that the microschool model has over traditional schools in terms of the academic side?
I think the most important is you're targeting a small group of students that all have very similar needs. So rather than having, say, 30 students who come from all walks of life, some who may be gifted, some who may be neurodiverse or remedial, maybe struggling, some who may have done the homework, some who haven't, you have 10 to 12 kids and you're designing a microschool for a particular population of child. For example, there's a lot of microschools designed for neurodivergent students. So they can build specific support for those kids. There are some microschools that are designed for student athletes. So they can create the right flexible schedule for those kids. For gifted students, there's so many different varieties of kids. So you can target a small group of kids and deliver a really personalized model rather than a one size fits all. So right off the bat, you've got this huge strength compared to traditional model. Then second, because it's so small, you can do very creative things. You can go out into the community. You can run really intense labs. You have so much more control over the day-to-day student and academic experience that you get another massive advantage. And then the third advantage, which I think will resonate in this group, is as a teacher, I remember I had a strong intuition over how to help the kids right in front of me, but I couldn't do it because someone else was telling me how I needed to do my job. That was so frustrating. And if that resonates with you, put a little thumbs up or something. I want to see if that resonates with people. Because when someone else who's not in the classroom or even in the same building as you is telling you how to do something, oh, that killed me. That was my burnout. It wasn't anything else. And so what I said is, I want to be able to do it myself. I know what these kids are going to need. So the third and final reasons microschools are incredible for academics is the person closest to the child, you, gets to make the decisions, gets to decide how to help them. And if it doesn't work on Tuesday, you try something else on Wednesday. If it doesn't work, you try it again. And the families are on that journey with you. That's what makes them incredible.
Elisa, when we first met, you told a story about reading The Outsiders together with your high school students. And it was just the passion and the selection of choosing what to read, when to read it, how to read it, connected with me. To maybe talk a little bit about how students learn at your school, and just as importantly, how you decided how they would learn. How did you go about that process?
Yeah, each microschool model is different. I saw a lot of diverse learners coming to me. Some super high in certain areas, some super what would be considered low in super areas. I don't like to use that term because I think you are where you are, right? So I early on decided that each student would have their own personalized curriculum that I would decide with the families. So before school even started, we would sit down and have a personalized meeting with the parents, the student, and I would just talk about how they learn. What do they learn? What do they like to learn? What are their interests? What do they want since I'm doing 6th through 12th graders? What do they want to do after high school? Um, And so we sat down and we did all that. I had a menu of curriculum options. Now, like I said, every micro school kind of does it different, but this is just what I did. I had a menu of curriculum options that KaiPod helped me kind of with. But I also just based off of talking for other homeschool families, other micro school families. I kind of talked and gathered all the information that I could, because we as teachers, we figure it out, right? We find all the resources we can, we gather it up, and then we send it out to the families. And that's how I built where we're at. I gave them some options. I said, here are the options that we have for curriculum. And then, as most teachers I know do, I also supplement and, put in my own flair and my own stuff. Like you were talking about the outsiders. We had everybody reading that. We had a party at the end of The Outsiders. We had, different, they were making memes off of the book by the end, like little TikTok videos, if they were like Cookie Boy or Soda Pop. It was amazing. So yeah, I mean, I just see what they're learning about and then kind of gather from there. A lot of the questions that I always get asked is, well, you have 6th through 12th graders. How do you, go with that? I mean, it's all personalized, right? So yeah, we were reading The Outsiders together, but most of the stuff they do is either with small groups or one-on-one with me. So and because there's only 14 of them, I get to float around my whole day and talk with all of them at various points of the day. They get so much attention that they're like, Miss Hernandez, you need to chill. I don't need so yeah, so that's kind of how they learn. And I mean, I could do assessments and quizzes and tests and things like that, but honestly, I don't need it. I don't need it. I see the work that they do every day. I talk to them about what they're doing and I see the progress in real time. So
I see some questions coming in around that. I'm going to come back to those. So please keep your questions as we go. These are fantastic. But Amar, I want to come to legal and compliance. This is probably the #1 question we get from teachers like those that are listening to us tonight on the call. And I suspect out of everybody in the world, you've probably helped more micro school founders through this question than anybody. In 4 years of Catalyst, hundreds of founders we've helped through. Help us understand the complexity. How does regulation work? How should we be thinking about it, state by state, national?
Yeah, I'll admit my first year, I literally got an ulcer thinking about regulation, but then I've learned how to solve it. So essentially, regulation can be complex, but it doesn't have to be. It is a patchwork of old laws that were created for large public schools or large private schools that kind of get applied to this space. There's also some wonderful exemptions that get you out of some stuff. Essentially, the way to think about it is you're either a private school as a micro school, or you're sort of like a learning center, like a tutoring center. And each of those has a different set of regulations. So part of the Catalyst program is we help you understand the right path for you in your state, and given your learning model, what's going to be the fastest way to get you up and running to certain kids. And there are some federal laws, there's some state laws, and there's some city and local laws. And so we help you understand all 3 of those for you. And this can be a real source of stress. It absolutely was for me. Like I said, I got an ulcer. But the thing that I've learned over the last 3, 4 years is most regulators, local and state, they're trying to do their best to help you. They don't want to get in your way. They don't want to be the bad guy in your story. They want to help you. And so if you approach it with that mindset, you can actually figure this out. And so most of our founders that work through this figure this out. It requires diligence. It requires attention to detail. It requires the patience to figure it out yourself or with our support. Thankfully, we've built the expertise to support founders in all 50 states, launch schools, and you can do it. You don't have to be scared of it.
There's some great questions coming in. Sorry, I do that, but we'll come back to that. They're around accreditation specifically. So I hear you and we'll come to it. But Elisa, I want to come back to you because as many questions around recruiting and marketing. A school does not exist without students. So let's talk about the marketing strategies and how you develop students. How did it feel for you? How did you make that transition from a district where students are coming to you to setting up your own school?
yeah, I'm not a salesperson. Like at yard sales, I'm basically giving away the stuff. Like I don't I don't sell anything. So that was my biggest thing, was how am I going to get parents to pay for me to teach their, that seems weird. Like that seems, it just felt unnatural, right? You're probably thinking that to yourself. I see some nods of the heads. Yeah. It feels unnatural to sell education. That's silly. It's like, no, no, we can't do this. But what I decided early on to fix, and if you're like a marketing person or a salesperson, just close your ears for a second. But I just decided to not do that. I just decided to not sell anything. And what I did was I looked at the vision and philosophy for my program. I want 6th through 12th grade students to feel comfortable, to learn, and to have fun. That's what we're doing. Here's what we're doing. Here's what I'm providing. And I would tell parents that. And, you know, the nitty gritty was, you're probably like, I need the details of what exactly you did. I would, you know, social media, I would create posts on Canva, and then I would share all these posts to multiple Facebook pages. I would get in any mom group I can get in, any homeschool group I can get in. If you're in a state with universal ESA, find those ESA groups, get in those groups. And I would just, I don't want to say spam them, but I would post the things that I was posting about education, the things I was posting about learning, adolescent learning. I would just create posts about my philosophy on education and then just share those posts. And when parents would reach out to me, or, you know, I would reach out to them, whatever way I would talk to parents, that's basically what I would tell them. Here's what Noema Learning is. Here's the details, here's when we're going to meet, here's the price, here's you know, my philosophy. If you like it, great, let's do this. If you don't like that, I will help you find something else, because I really think that every student should get the education they deserve. I'm just honest about that. And if it's not with me, I will help them find where they need to go. If I know someone, I will send them there. And I've sent them to many micro schools in the area. There's not a lot, but as many as I know of, because I just believe that they should get that education. So that was honestly my only strategy, was not selling so much as just, here's my vision, here's my philosophy. And that's how my students came. And I got 14 by August, and the same 14 are here with me today. So I mean, it's kind of crazy why I don't, like, I was hoping for 7. I was literally hoping for 7 students, and then 14 came. So yeah, that's where we ended up.
Do you have a guess how many families we spoke to get to the 14
Oof.
ballpark?
I mean, I would say around 100 or so. That might be
That's about right. Yeah.
okay. I was like, I don't know if that's even as much as I did, but
Yeah,
that was kind of a low guess, honestly. But yeah,
it takes a lot. I mean, I was going to say, both people on this call can see why the 14 came through. You're incredibly passionate and compelling in what you do, but it's still 100 families. It's still hard, I imagine,
Yeah.
to tell your story, to here's my dream, here's my hope, my business, and let's be candid here, your potential income. I mean, this
Right.
is the big thing we'll talk about now, to 100 families and have them only 14 come through.
Yeah.
So let's broaden that, Amar. Many of the folks on this call may not have had previous experience running a business, for-profit or nonprofit. Can you walk through that transition? What does the economics of a school look like? How does a school function financially?
Yeah, happy to. It's one thing to broaden out is you're not just running a school, you're running a business. Even if you're a nonprofit, you have to look at it like a business, which has income that comes in, it has expenses that go out, and it has something that's left over at the end of the year. Hopefully that number is green and not red. So that's the basics. Now, what is the income? It's tuition. It's tuition. And so just like private schools charge tuitions, micro schools charge tuition. You can charge part-time tuition, full-time tuition, annually, by month, by week, even by day we have seen, but you charge a tuition. If you're in a state that has an education savings account, and now there are 14 states that count for 40% of kids in America, if you're in one of those states, then the parents can use that education savings account to pay for your school. That means nothing comes out of pocket for the parent, assuming your tuition is within range. So that's what the revenues are, is the number of kids you have multiplied by how much tuition you're charging. And then on the expenses side, there's three big categories. There's staff. So you probably want to pay yourself something. If you're hiring staff, you want to pay them. That's the biggest cost for a micro school. The second is the space that you're going to be using. If it's in your home, then that cost is zero. But if you're renting a church, if you're renting a retail establishment or an office space, then you're paying something as monthly rent. And the third big cost is sort of curriculum, insurance, marketing costs, kind of a miscellaneous bucket. And so part of the Catalyst programs, we help you plan your financial model. So we talk to you about how many kids you'd like to serve, what your dream is, what you think the rough tuition can be in your area, whether or not there's an education savings account, how much you might pay for rent, how much you want to pay yourself. And then we help you balance a budget every year. Like, this is what your micro school should build. And so people like Elisa follow that advice very well, right? They create the model, they charge tuition, and she lives in Arizona where there is an education savings account, which I'm sure helps some of the families who may not have been able to afford it otherwise. And so we help you create that budget. And then it's about you being disciplined about the expenses, about the revenue, to make sure that those tuition payments are coming in on a regular basis and you're only spending what you've allotted for the expenses. So it's a good habit. All of you are personal finance. You all probably have a household budget or a classroom budget that you manage. It's the same principles, just applied to a bigger scale.
Mhm. Lisa, I want to come to you, but this question's come in and gotten a big reaction. How about developing a model for lower income students or students that may not be able to pay tuition? Can you speak to that specifically? You've used this term education spending accounts for those states and then other states, maybe how those models work.
Let's do it. Yeah. So if you're in a state with an education savings account, that problem gets solved for you because the state will give families on average $8,000 to spend towards a qualified educational expense. And with the right regulation and the right paperwork, you can qualify for those accounts. So that way, even if a family has zero disposable income, they can use that roughly $8,000 from the state to pay for your school. So that solves that problem. If you're in a state that doesn't have an ESA, obviously many of you will be, in those states, we help you come up with a more creative way. Now, you still need to balance your books, right? You can't just take on debt. You shouldn't just rely on grants. You can take some grants, right? Grants you can get maybe in the first year to get started, but you've got to create a budget that balances every year. And so we help you figure out some creative ways to do that. A lot of microschools start with sort of part-time plans, so like 1 day a week or 2 days a week, which can be more affordable for lower income families. We would suggest you start off in a lower cost space, like your home or a church, so that you're not taking on a ton of expense if the families can't afford it. So we work with you to figure those things out, but ultimately, you've got to find a way to make it work. And one of the things I'll tell you when we do Catalyst interviews, so once you apply, we interview your team, our team interviews you, we ask you this question pretty point blank. Do you think your community can afford roughly X thousand dollars? Yes or no? If not, okay, let's talk about some creative ways. And if we don't think that that's going to be possible, we're very upfront with you because we don't want to lead you on in creating a school that's not going to be sustainable or have you built something for a community that can't afford it. No one wants that. So we help think through this as part of the interview process pretty explicitly.
We're going to go transition to what that Catalyst program is and how it works in 1 second, but two final questions, at least, before we move off to this section of the program. Just rounding out that financial discussion, because it's a topic that many people have. Tell us how you managed that transition, how it felt for you just to go into that role of managing a school budget.
Yeah. So when I kind of came into this, we're coming from education, so I was prepared to make whatever I was going to make, right? I just knew I needed to pay my bills. I got 2 kids, I got a house, I got to pay my bills, right? But honestly, because I was working from my home, I didn't have rent to pay. So I was like, okay, well, there's that. We have universal ESA here in Arizona, so I knew that they were going to get about 7 grand. So I created my tuition, and these guys at KaiPod are going to tell you the same thing. It was low. I have a really low tuition, but that is because I wanted something left over because you can use that on sports, you can use that on extracurriculars that I might not be able to give them. So I wanted to give them a little bit extra. And I did the budget. I guesstimated, again, 7 kids is what I was hoping for, right? So I have 14. Now some of them are part-time, and some of them are full-time. So when I say 14, that's 14 with mixture of part-time and full-time. Um, and I can go into detail if you guys want to later, if what that looks like. But yeah, so I am, I will say that I am taking home more than I did from my teacher paycheck, but I will also say that it might not be the case for everybody. It just depends. I think that a big part of that was because I am in my home. A lot of the curriculum wasn't very expensive because I kind of knew what I wanted. I was really thrifty with some of those startup. So Facebook Marketplace, did it say free? I got it. If it said free, I got it. So yeah, there was a lot of that kind of stuff. So that was kind of a struggle, but it was also something that I am happy that I'm making a little bit more than I did when I worked at the school, and I feel better. So I mean, like, 2 thumbs up. You know what I'm
Thank
saying?
you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing some of your journey. I know I appreciate your candor, opening up with the community. We're going to go to the Catalyst, but before we close this segment, I have to go back from the financials to the students. Elisa, can you share one or two stories of the students that have come into your program and what that's meant just as we close December in your first year?
You know, it's been incredible to see the students that I've had. I mean, I can tell you, I have a couple specific stories. I'll just give you one. But generally speaking, I have never felt such an impact in my August through December than I have in my 11 years of teaching. Truthfully. And I loved being a classroom teacher. I thought it was the best day ever every time I went into that classroom. But this section of my career has been the best. Not because of me, but because of what I've seen my students do. Um, I have a student who um, she was diagnosed with a very rare disorder where she has like vocal tics. So it's kind of like Tourette's where she like says things and right. And she hasn't been able to be in school for like 4 or 5 years. So she's about 18, and so she's working at like a sophomore junior level. Um, and I mean, a micro school is just perfect for her, right? Because it's just a small environment, and she is thriving. She told me the other day that she loves learning. That's what she said. She's like, I love learning. And now I feel like I can actually be comfortable learning somewhere. Um,
Yep.
and if that doesn't like make your teacher heart grow 3 sizes, like I don't know what will. Every day I hear students say things like, this is the most I've learned. I had a student tell me the other day, this is the most I've learned ever in my life. Now maybe they were being sarcastic or hyperbole. I don't know. But just hearing that though, there has to be some level of truth there. I had another student that she would always get in trouble. Her mom told me, well, I don't know, we'll just see how this goes. And she comes every day. She's not a problem. She's never been a problem for me. She learns, she asks questions, she's grown in her math skills. And I am not a math teacher, but she's grown in her math skills. How did she do that? I don't understand. She just did because she feels like this is a comfortable environment for her to be in. And I'm telling you, it's the most incredible journey I've been on. I could do this for the next 100 years of my life if they can figure out how to keep me alive for 100 years. Because I truly love it. I wish I could do it for more kids. I wish I had the biggest house so I can continue to bring kids in. Maybe one day I will get a giant farm and put the kids there, but I don't know. I just love it so much. So thanks for
Thank you.
letting me ramble. I'm so sorry.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's incredible to hear the story and your passion. And I got the holiday reference on the heart's three sizes too big. Timely.
Oh, I missed the reference. Nice. Yeah, good job.
We're gonna call you back in as we get into Q&A. But Amar, maybe you can walk through a little bit more about the Catalyst program that we're here to talk about as well.
Yes, I'm happy to. And I see some questions in here about how the program works. Let's get into it. So the goal of today is to help you see this segment, how it's growing, how wonderful it is for kids, for educators, how it's bringing joy back to learning. And with the right support, you can do it. That there's this transition that happens from being an educator to a founder educator. And that's what we want to talk about. So let me share a few words. So if you can go to the next slide. Just a little bit about KaiPod Catalyst. We are the largest accelerator, microschool accelerator in the country. We're in more than 25 states. We're in 3 countries. We do believe that we have heard from our founders that we have the absolute best program, the best support, and we're really excited to launch a new cohort this spring. It'll be our 5th cohort of founders. To date, we've accepted more than 150 founders into our programs. These cohorts are very selective, so we're really careful to make sure we're only accepting founders that we know can be successful, their communities can support schools, they have the right motivations. So there's an application process and an interview process. I don't say this to make it sound difficult. I say this to make you believe there's a real selectiveness. There's really high caliber founders who do this program. And as a result of it, our success rate is 6 times the national average. Nationally, according to the National Microschooling Center, less than 10% of people who go out to start a school end up doing so. In our programs, the data was 60%. So we really feel good about this. I don't have to go more about how wonderful microschools are. You've heard this. They personalize learning. They're positive. There's less bullying. Kids are met where they need to be. Families feel connected. Educators, like the autonomy you will feel. I ran my first school after being a teacher and a principal. The autonomy I felt was mind-blowing. There's no way to describe that feeling of, I can just make the decision. It's my decision. I can decide. The career growth that comes with going from being a classroom teacher to a founder, the relationships you'll form with kids and their families, there's no way to describe it. There's no other way to describe it. So let's go to the next slide. So this is how it works. So essentially, we believe this is a recipe for starting a really wonderful school. So on the left is the stuff you bring, is the ingredients that you need. You have to have a vision. You kind of want a thing that says, here's what I want, how I want to serve the kids in my community. You want to have a ton of passion. You're going to need it, right? Starting a school is not easy. It's a business and a school at the same time. 2 probably of the hardest things to do. So you need a ton of passion to do this and hard work. So those are the things you bring to the table. And then what the Catalyst program provides is the stuff on the right. So we have an online step-by-step course. It's all the things you need to take. We've done this dozens and dozens of times with dozens and dozens of founders. It took us 1,500 hours to build our first school. 1,500 hours. Elisa, I bet it did not take you 1,500 hours. She's thinking. So the goal of all of this is to accelerate all the work that you're putting into this. So that course helps answer a lot of the questions you're going to have because we've already solved it. We have pre-built templates. So your first family handbook, your enrollment forms, your field trip permission forms, lease agreements, space use agreements, hiring agreements, subcontracts, everything. We have templates for everything. I've paid lots of attorneys a lot of money to build it. You can have it. So that's a huge benefit you get as part of the program to get you started. You get one-on-one coaching with people who have started schools. So it's either people on our team or other microschool founders who are now paying it back to coach other founders who are starting schools. So you get direct support one-on-one. There are groups that meet to keep you accountable. All of you, I think, probably will say that this on a tough journey, you want a team with you. You want people going on that journey with you. So you'll have a cohort of about 10 other founders who are in this journey that'll be part of your small group. And there'll be a group leader that's supporting this group. The full community of Catalyst founders, 150 founders now across the entire country and a few other international locations some of them are ahead of you, right? They started a year before you or even 2 years before you. Some of them are just coming up with you. So you're in this wonderful community of people who have probably answers to every question you're going to have. And so our online community is very, very well connected. And then finally, we have connections to people who can help you. Brokers, accountants, lawyers, etc., funders who can help with startup capital. We have our own small grant for some founders. So all of those things can help you get your school off the ground. So the summary here is in the Catalyst program, which is just the accelerator to get your school live, These are all the things that you get as part of the Catalyst program. And if we go to the next slide, this is how it works. So we believe very much in a commitment. So we don't want to say to you, give me $20,000 and you're done. That's not how this works. So generally the Catalyst program is a commitment to you and you make a commitment to us. It's a two-way street. The first thing I like to say is your Microschool is 100% owned and operated by you. This is not a franchise. This is not a KaiPod. It's your school. And the reason I say this front and center is I want you to have unlimited freedom and autonomy to bring your school to life, your vision to life. You should say, this is my school, I'm building it, which also means you have unlimited financial upside. So as your school thrives, so do you. That's the whole point of this. If you're making the leap from teaching to entrepreneurship, you want to feel like there's some impact to be had, but also upside in terms of financial outcomes. What we do is we're your partner for the next 3 years. So we're with you every step of the way. We're providing you access to Newton, which is our Microschool management software. We are giving you marketing support through ads, through a national marketplace. We pitch all of our Microschools to different PR agencies to get you covered in local news outlets. We get you hosted on podcasts. So we want to help you grow your school. So we provide that support. We give you ongoing support with local regulations and state regulations, which can change from time to time. So you want to always stay in compliance. We do professional development for you and your team. So if you have a team of teachers under you in your school, they get access to all the professional development we build for Microschools. You have access to curriculum discounts, hardware discounts, and a full community of leaders. So you get a ton of support from the network as part of your 3 years with us. And the way our financial model works is when you launch, we just bill a per student fee. And that per student fee comes to about 10% of your tuition. And when we're building your financial model with you, we help bake that in so you can predict it, you know what it's going to be, you're not surprised by anything. There are no other fees. We don't believe in any of that. What we believe is in when you succeed, we want to succeed. And if you need help, we're there to help you. So that's how this model works. And I'm sure there'll be more questions, so throw them in the chat. So we'll cover them in the Q&A. I'll do this very quickly. These are just 4 of our founders from our early cohorts. You'll see some of their quotes. There's 100 other quotes like this. I think the thing I want you to take away from this is how much commitment our team has to the people like you who are taking this leap. We don't take that responsibility lightly. We know that you're taking a big leap, and we are right there with you when you start your school. The second thing I want to sort of highlight from some of these quotes is going on this journey will change how you see yourself. A lot of you are probably feeling a little imposter syndrome in this journey. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if this is for me. This is for other people like Elisa who start schools. But Elisa probably said that a year ago. This is for other people. So believe it. Believe that you can do it.
Last week. What do you think?
Still feeling it. Yeah, that imposter syndrome never goes away. But just call it what it is. It's imposter syndrome. I can do this. And this program is the thing you need to get that feeling, to put it in its own place so you can launch the school your city needs.
Great. I'm going to take off the screen slides and we're going to go into Q&A. So please feel free to add questions. A bunch have come through. So I'm going to just dive right in and summarize into 3 buckets. If you put your question, I'm going to go a little bit back to licensing and regulation. We're going to talk a little bit about teaching and learning, and then we're going to go to competencies of founder and more about the founder. On the licensing question, several questions came in. Let me rephrase, and then Amar, I'll come back to you again. But it's a patchwork of state and local, mostly regulations. So it's hard to give general advice. We see a number of questions across of how would a model work in this situation. Each state will be different. Each jurisdiction will be different. What we have found is there is a path forward. If you want to start a school, there is a way to do it. And in almost every jurisdiction in the country, you will be able to navigate that. Sometimes you have to be very, very careful and thoughtful. And there's a whole slate of things that we help you think through in terms of being a school of record or not, being a learning pod, being a learning center rather than a school. These are details, but the headline is it's navigable. Amar, would you add anything to that? Think about that.
You covered it perfectly.
What about accreditation? That's also come separately, which is a little bit different than licensing. I want to make sure people see that distinction. How do you think about accreditation specifically?
Yeah. Accreditation is a stamp of approval from a third party that says you are doing the things you say you're doing and you're on a journey of continuous improvement. It is not required in most states, and it is not something that all parents care about, but it is something that a lot of parents care about. So you might choose to seek accreditation for your school. And if you want to do that, we have some pathways to support you on that. But I would say that most schools don't seek it in year one. This is usually a year or two onwards challenge.
Great. So we can come back to that, and then those more questions on licensing are going to be done helpful off email or follow up with us after this if you have specific questions or ways we can think through it. Let's go to teaching and learning. Several questions have come up on how do you teach all the subjects? How do micro schools handle the wide range of learning that needs to happen with one educator? Amar, maybe briefly generalize, and then Elisa, I'll come to you and speak to that.
Yeah, if you're going to have a micro school with lots of ages, you change the verb. It's not teaching, you're guiding, you're coaching. So you use a curriculum, an online curriculum, to do the quote teaching, the instruction part of it. And then you are there supporting the children with the things they might be struggling with. And so this model works in the KaiPod microschools and in a lot of our partners. It's not the only way to do it. Elisa, I think yours is probably similar to this. There are some microschools that say, I want to serve 3rd through 5th graders and I want to do the teaching. Okay, that's fine too. But I would say don't create your own curriculum from scratch in year one. At least take something off the shelf and customize it in the first year. And then as you build your expertise in running the school, then you can take over more and more of it.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty similar to what we do. We do kind of just like blocks of learning. This is exactly what the KaiPod schools do. But I mean, they have their own curriculum. It's all personalized. So it's either very self-paced or it's a curriculum where I can maybe give like a mini lesson to a group and then they can work. So it just kind of depends on the model in which you want to go on and the curriculum in which you want to use. I would agree that don't try to create your own stuff. I know that we're all teachers and you're like, but I like to create my own stuff. I don't know, maybe some of you don't. I love to create my own stuff. But maybe don't with everything. Just like customize it. Like it's okay. I'm gonna give you permission to do that if you do that.
That's great. And if we didn't cover that, let us know. But a blend of a lot of our founders across the network will do a blend of online learning and in-person instruction. We did get one question around whether it can be all online. And there certainly are learning models that are all online. And when we think of Microschool, we do think of an in-person experience. So there's no fixed taxonomy. People can use the term for different things, but an online learning may put different challenges on learning in person, particularly some of the questions around early ages. If it's reading and writing, that in-person experience can be so helpful. Amar, I want to go then to this third question around the founder journey and the founder experience. Perhaps the broadest question first, what are the competencies that you see in a successful founder?
The most important is a real heart for education and kids. That you know this is the thing that sustains you, that sustains your energy, because there are going to be hard days. The second is resilience, or you can call it grit. There's going to be those hard days, and you want to get past. You can say, it's okay. Today's just a bad day. I'm going to start again tomorrow. That's really important in any entrepreneurial venture, but especially micro schools. I think a third is an attention to detail and a sort of a growth mindset when it comes to the things you're working on, because a lot of this is going to be new to you. You might be a great teacher, so great at curriculum and learning, but marketing and financial planning and regulation might be new. Or some of you might be community leaders. So marketing is going to be super easy, but the curriculum side will be hard. So a growth mindset that you're willing to take the time to learn new things and then pay attention to the details because they will matter. Parents will care.
There are a couple questions. Elisa, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I was just going to agree, mostly. And then I would also say, and you kind of said this, but being teachable and, really moldable, in that idea, like obviously what you want in your school, but also having that, I still want to learn new things and new ways to do things. So that's what I would.
It's a great sentiment. There are a couple questions here related around what you need to start, and I'll just maybe tackle them because I think I have a perspective. Do you need a team? No, you don't need a team. You don't need a CPA. You don't need an accounting firm. Those are not barriers. Do you need to be a 501c3 or LLC? 501c3 is a nonprofit status or an LLC. We do recommend an organization. So you're not just your name, and there's a whole range of reasons to do that. So creating an entity, a business entity, whether it's nonprofit or for-profit is your choice, but we recommend having an organization. But you don't need a staff. You don't need a team. These can start very small, and a one-woman show, Elisa, is still today. Question on the business model, Amar, is the fee for 3 years or lifetime? What happens after the 3 years?
Yeah, the fee is for 3 years because that helps us cover the cost of the accelerator as well as the cost of delivering all that support to you over those 3 years. So we don't go away. We're there with you. We're still helping you grow, helping you have good impact. You're using our software. After the 3 years, you choose. Do you want to stay in the network or not? So far, everyone stays in the network. So we hope that you will. But it becomes your choice. And you can also say, I want to only take these pieces of what I'm getting. So it helps you, again, be back in control.
Around that requirements, you do not need to be an educator. You will need to, in certain states, go through a process to make sure you qualify to be around children, but there's not a educator designation. Partnered with Microschool serving low-income families that are not paying tuition. Back to the business model question, Amar. You want to speak to some of our partners that are targeting specifically the low-income demographic?
Yeah, we see some where they have creative arrangements to have parents volunteer at the school or take on some of the load from the founder in exchange for tuition. You'll see some of that. Or they may allow the kids to be in their home or on their property for outdoor activities. So you call it just bartering. There's bartering is very common in micro schools. That can work. But you have to ask yourself at the end of the day, is any income coming in? Am I able to pay myself any cash if that's important to me? If it's not important to you to collect any salary and you're doing this totally for free and you have no costs, then you can do that. But I think for the most part, you should plan to figure out how much you want to pay yourself, how much you're going to pay for rent and other things, and build a financial model on that number.
And that's what we would advocate, just a deliberate approach to that.
Just be deliberate.
How are you covering your costs, your salary, and any expenses? The only other model I would point to is affiliation with a religious organization. Sometimes that also helps support costs. So it's not family direct pay, but it's subsidized or supported through religious organization or community organization in your community. Ballpark insurance or curriculum costs. I'll say curriculum. One thing we see, you could pass that on sometimes, and some states it could be free. But so many of our founders will have a curriculum fee separate from tuition. And some states have free online curricula where those can be options as well. But insurance, anything to add there?
Yeah, insurances can be anywhere from about $1,500 to $2,000 a year for a micro school, depending on how big it is, where it is. You need general liability insurance, property coverage, abuse coverage. There's a lot of those types of buckets. We have partnerships with 3 different insurance brokers that can help get you quotes. So yeah, we help you with all of that.
If there are any final questions, please add them in the chat. Would we support a micro school that is intended to supplement a traditional educational experience, school experience for summer school?
Yeah, we actually often see people start in summer school or as a tutoring provider. And then over time, they'll start to see the parents will say, oh, I wish my kid just to be here all day or all week, right? I wish this was my school. And so that gives you the motivation to start. Those of you who are considering doing this, I'd say join the program and start a little tutoring practice. Start building your base of clients. Figure out how it feels to help kids. It'll give you some income coming in, and it will help you sort of help spread the word in the community that you're going to start something.
Is New York an ESA state? Maybe a plug where
Oh, I wish. No, New York is not an ESA state. Unfortunately, the politics of New York State don't yet support an ESA to come.
a plug maybe where people learn more about ESAs. There was a resource.
Yep. If you go to edchoice.org, edchoice.org, they have wonderful primers on ESAs. They have a map that's called School Choice in America that tells you which states they're in, etc.
And campuses or our home program, we support founders that do both. A majority of our founders will find a location outside of the home. So those can be in a retail location, they can be in a religious, a church or a community organization. Most of them are in a commercial space.
We have some that meet outdoors because it's an outdoor nature-based microschool, and we now have a founder who meets on a school bus. She bought a school bus, converted it into a microschool, and that microschool goes around the community. Imagine the learning those kids are getting. It's incredible. You can do whatever you want.
Here's a good question. Two last ones. Would you recommend having other employment?
Elisa, that's for you.
I don't know if I'd have time for other employment. Honestly, I mean, if KaiPod helps you set up the budget, you won't need it.
I appreciate that. It just the focus, it's an intense experience is what we've observed. When you take on the commitment with the families, it can be all consuming. In building a business is that all the teaching responsibilities you're familiar with from a career in education, plus the administrative and
I will say,
organization building.
yes, and it is a full-time job, but I will say for those who are in teaching, and I know that we're running out of time, it is the work level, although you are working hard, it is different because you are enjoying what you're doing so much more. I'm telling you, you are. You're actually, because like was said, it's, autonomy. You are doing it because you know what's best and you are making the calls. So yeah, so it is hard work, but you're liking it. You're liking the hard work.
Now,
And just to be clear, in the year from now until next fall, where you're building your school, yes, you should and can have alternate employment. Many of you are in teaching contracts now. But once your school opens its doors, it's full-time, that should feel like a full-time job to you.
exactly what I was going to say. The summer camp, spring camp beforehand, it's a great way to meet families, to develop your technique in the classroom with the autonomy and freedom that we've talked about. These are good ways to start building the business, but hopefully when your school opens, it becomes full-time. A final question, which I would just salute the person who wrote this question, is a C of O with an educational rating needed in Arizona for a commercial space. You are well on your way to being an educational entrepreneur who wrote that question. I love it. The answer is it depends on the zoning where you are in Arizona. A certificate of occupancy is needed, but not necessarily an educational rating. We cannot give general advice across the state of Arizona, but the fact that you're thinking about that is a wonderful sign.
Yeah, very good sign.
Educational trajectory.
You're already way ahead of where I was, so.
Oh, this is a great, even better final question. If we're starting now, does it give us enough time to open next August?
Yes, the whole cohort is going to be about next August. So you're going to be in a group of dozens of other founders who are targeting the same start date as you.
So if you would like to learn more and see us, please come visit us at KaiPodLearning.com. And we believe very strongly there is enough time and you can be able to open up a thriving school and go on the journey that Elisa has been sharing tonight and is on herself. So with that, I want to thank very much, Elisa. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you as well, Teacher Transition, Brooke, for joining us and for everything you do to help teachers in their transitions across the board. And we're so glad for everybody who joined us. Thank you so much and have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.